me to do in 5, 4, 3.
All right, everybody, our first guest ever is Jenny Walsh. Jenny, how do you feel about being our very first guest?
What an honor.
Are you nervous?
No, I don't feel too. I'm always so excited to talk about the school board, so
Great.
This is right up my alley.
Okay, I'm nervous, but we'll be easy on you, I promise. So I got a little bio here. Everybody, this is Jenny Walsh, who's a trustee on the MCPS School Board. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Jenny was elected to the Board of Trustees here in Missoula in May of 2024. She holds a master's degree in special education from the University of Montana with experience in early intervention, family support, and educational consulting. Jenny and her husband Owen have 3 kids in Missoula Public Schools. You can find Jenny and her family outside enjoying every season Montana has to offer. So again, welcome Jenny. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining the show. And Allison, how about you ask the first question?
Yeah, of course. Of all the ways to be of service to your community and civically engaged, why did you choose to run for school board?
Well, I've always been a barnacle of the schools. I have spent my whole life somehow working in and around schools, so it's a really comfortable place for me. I feel like I know the bones of the operations well, and I know what it looks like when it runs well. So I was living in New York for about 8 years and moved back to Missoula the fall before I ran. And there was 2 open seats, and one had no candidate running for it, and everyone was a little nervous about a rumor of who might run for it, and I thought, I bet I could do that pretty okay. Mm-hmm. So the more I learned about it, the more I was like, I think I love this kind of work. And I do. I've loved every minute of it. So I feel it's such a privilege and an honor to get to work for our schools. And the more I've done it, the more I've realized it's a really great position to push on the legislature from. So I feel like I've been able to not just work for our community, but I've been able to use this position to push on the legislature to better fund our whole state school system.
Wow. Well, and I know being on the school board is like a full-time job, so thank you for what you do, because I know it takes a lot of time out of your day and everybody else's day, and we appreciate it. Because it's all volunteer, right? It's not a job.
You can kind of dial it up or dial it back depending on like where your busy seasons are or what your day job is. And I have nothing else really going on, so besides some hobbies. So
I know that's not true.
This is my number one hobby.
Well, that's great. You got to love what you do. Can you talk about the recent levies that passed in Missoula, Bonner, and Seeley Lake? And a couple extra questions with that. 1, what is a levy? What does it do? Why are they important? And 2, why do we need them?
Such good questions, and not something most people have ever learned in their life. So I think it's one that we really need to, as maybe school board trustees especially, really help people start feeling more familiar with. But a levy, so the way our school funding formula works in Montana is that the state guarantees every district 80% of what their school budget would be. And that 80% will get you your basic graduation requirements. So that's not AP classes, that's not foreign languages, only the basics to graduate, and 80% of your budget will get you there. If you want to the legislature also sets a cap of what is your 100% budget. And if you want to get up to that cap, your local population has to vote in that funding through a levy. So a levy is just a layer of taxation that is locally controlled. So if a community doesn't want to fund their school extra or to 100%, they don't have to. But one thing I like about the levy is it does create a community dialogue between the system and the people who are funding the system. And I think that gives a layer of accountability that isn't a bad thing. But it is a normal funding mechanism, so it sometimes feels to the taxpayer like another levy. But what happens is that 100% funding, as inflation rises, that what 100% looks like will rise, and then you have to levy that little gap. Or the reason this levy was larger than we've had in the past is because the legislature said, whoa, Missoula's cost of living has really increased, and what it takes to employ people with reasonable wages has increased. So they said, your 100% is actually way up here. And so they gave us more room in our budget to levy for. So that's what a levy is and why we have it. But what were the other aspects of the question? Is that making sense?
That
Yeah,
does,
yeah, you pretty much covered it. It was like, what is it? Why is it important?
Well, I'll get back to why it's important. Let me get back to why it's okay. So one thing I'm really proud about this year, and I'm telling everyone that will listen, is that Missoula is sending kids to MIT next year.
Wow.
We've got kids going to Stanford. We've got kids going to Columbia. We've got kids pursuing their dream programs. We've also got kids graduating with their CNAs,
Wow.
which is a certified nursing assistant. And healthcare is our #1 industry in Montana. People wouldn't always guess that.
Even more than agriculture.
Oh, way more. Agriculture
Wow.
is maybe, education's way up there too.
Wow.
In Missoula, our top 3 employers are the university, St. Pat's, and MCPS.
Wow.
So,
More than tourism even.
well, we need those tourism dollars.
Yeah.
But, so why is a levy important? So between 80% and 100% of funding is where you can pay for all those things like AP courses, electives, trades programs like our welding programs and our carpentry programs, but also we've been able to do partnerships with local businesses like the Montana Knife Company, and we've been able to say, what skill set do you need kids to develop, like to employ them? Like what do you need your employees to know? And they were like, we need them to be able to use this CNC machine, I think it's called. It's like a metal cutting program. And we were like, we could probably develop a course for that. And so we've been able to develop these really interesting courses that allow kids to try on different things they might want to do with their adulthood. And so then when they step into adulthood after graduation, they have a real sense of direction, whether it's academic pursuits, whether it's stepping right into healthcare, which we desperately need in our state, whether it's an internship that we have kids that have been employed right out of high school into local businesses, which is good for them and good for us. But it's the extra funding that gets us up to 100%, which is why we can have programs like that. And some districts who only have their 80% of funding, they're not even able to offer chemistry or physics. So those kids have such a bigger gap if they ever want to do something like become a physician or a nurse, that it starts to erode that path for them if their schools can't offer those kind of basics, which I call basics, but
Got it.
in our state, we call that extra levy funded programming.
Okay.
Okay.
Before you go to your next question, since we're on levies and they're just kind of complicated, would it be naive to say that if the legislature didn't just fund it all in full, we wouldn't need to put levies on the ballot?
So great question, because right now we're doing our once every 10-year statewide school funding study, which we call the decennial study, but the name for the committee in charge of that is the School Funding Interim Committee, the SFIC, and that's one of the proposals that they're looking at is what if we just funded schools at 100%. two other levies that we run and have passed some of in our Missoula community are technology and safety levies. And you're going to catch me in front of the legislature making public comment a lot that safety and technology are not optional. And so they shouldn't be funded like that. They should be baked into our budgets. So that's something I hope they take into consideration as we move into this next session, next spring. But that would be ideal. Although I think I'm a big proponent of local control, especially as a school board trustee. I'm always fighting the state for let us be in charge of our dollars. I think levies, the one nice thing about levies is they really do create community conversation around tax dollars and are they being well stewarded and are they being spent efficiently.
Right.
And that's, as a trustee in charge of being a good steward, I don't mind that level of accountability.
I kind of naively thought that voting for a levy, it would be just the infrastructure of a school, replacing things that are probably...
That's a bond.
That's a pond.
Bonds
okay.
and levies are different, and Mark Thane is my go-to person for all explanations of that. But if you want to build something, you would need a bond, which is akin to a mortgage.
Okay, interesting.
And that still goes on the ballot for voters to...
If you want to run a bond. So Helena just passed a historic bond to build a new high school. Their high school was literally falling apart onto children's heads.
Yep.
And if they didn't pass that bond, they were going to have to go to 6 a.m. to noon high school and noon to 6 p.m. high school to make sure every kid got a high school experience that needed one in Helena. So luckily, but it was like a $365 million bond, and it's hard to pass a bond. We passed a bond in 2015, maybe, to when we refurbished all our schools and built Jeanette Rankin.
Okay.
Got you.
It might have been 2011. No, I think it was 2015.
Well, that's new info to me. So a levy and a bond are two different things.
Two different things,
Yeah.
different
Good to know.
purposes, usually much different amounts. Levies are, $1 million isn't small.
Right,
but
much smaller in comparison,
to a
typically.
bond, yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Well, it's a well-known fact that public school teachers in the United States are underpaid and overworked. What is Missoula County Public Schools doing to both support and retain our beloved teachers?
And we have so many good teachers in Missoula. We are actually so lucky. But we don't just have good teachers. We have our classified staff, which is our custodians, our paraeducators, and our food service folks. And they are the backbone of our schools. We couldn't do it without teachers, but we also couldn't do it without them. And this levy, because we were able to pass this levy, will be able to give wage increases to those folks as well. So our teachers,
Amazing.
Yeah, what'd you say?
Amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Really, well, it's getting harder and harder to afford to live in Missoula, and it's getting harder and harder to find folks that can afford to live here and do jobs that are essential like that, but
Yeah.
also aren't. If you can make more at McDonald's, sometimes that seems
Yeah.
more appealing.
You're probably going to go where you're
Right.
making more money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how are we retaining? So that's one way that we're going to hopefully retain and maybe recruit some more classified staff. We from our school board was one of the most active boards in the last legislative session. And we pushed really hard, and I know a lot of folks in our community worked really hard at passing the STARS Act, which was a piece of legislation that guaranteed wage increases or salary increases to teachers for 2 years. So last year our teachers got a raise, and this year they'll also be getting a raise. I would be doing them a disservice if I didn't bring up that inflation has outpaced those raises, and they are still behind when it comes to keeping up with cost of living. So there's still a lot of work to do there, and I hope our teachers feel like we're fighting hard for them at that state level, because when they remind us that those raises are not keeping up with inflation, that does not fall on deaf ears. I turn right around and talk to the education committees about that same issue. So,
Right.
you know, and then just really making sure that we have a work environment where teachers feel like they can, you know, make sure everybody in charge knows what they need to feel supported, and that there's no punishment in saying like, hey, this isn't going well, or hey, we need this, or, you know, every time we go on a tour of a building as a school board trustee, we're always like, what do you need? Like, what can we do to support you? And we always hear more grown-ups in the building. So that's always a quest for, you know, can we find more dimes in the couch cushion to make sure there's more grown-ups in the building and that class sizes feel manageable.
Yeah. Okay. This past fall, MCPS started a planning process led by the WGM group to determine the future uses of 14 properties. Where does MCPS currently stand in that process, and are there any other additional ways community members can get involved?
Okay, I was on that committee, really fascinating work, and WGM, sometimes you hire a consultant and you get to the end of it and you feel like that wasn't money well spent. This was money really well spent. They did a phenomenal job of helping us figure out what do we have. And what we have are some buildings that are just rotting in their spot, which creates a community hazard. And we've seen that in the Prescott neighborhood, the Lower Rattlesnake neighborhood around Prescott Elementary. Those neighbors have been like really involved throughout the process, and I think there are some that would love to see it turned back into a school.
Right.
But there will just never be a need for that size of a school in that spot. So we have to figure out what can we do with this property that's just rotting and creating a hazard. And
That's the school where the Missoula International School
yes,
was? Okay.
where MIS was for a while. It's just, the building, it has no boiler. We really couldn't even use it for a gym. It's just unsafe. So as part of that study, we had architects look at all those properties. We had a real estate company come in and like value them for us. There's not a lot of comps if you're looking at like how much, so you really have to have a whole team go in there and look at each one. But what's exciting about that, and I think where we are at this stage, is we've looked at each one. We've gotten a ton of community involvement, especially with neighbors who would, you know, that Prescott school is right in someone's front yard. So they, of course, have a huge stake in what happens to it. So we've kind of gone through each property with the people that would most be affected by it and figured out a plan for each one. So some buildings we're going to sit on, like Jefferson. It's in really good shape. It's in a really great spot. If we needed to have another school, it's kind of ready to go. We use it for gym. Parks and Rec uses it, the Kiwanis Basketball League. So that's one we're not going to do anything to. We're going to keep it. If we don't do anything with all of them, we're going to be putting ourselves in about a $10 million, maybe $15 million deficit.
Wow.
I think it's $15 million deficit in the next 10 years of just maintenance costs.
Wow.
Because it's like, even this past winter, one of those big windstorms blew the roof off of Jefferson. And then you have, who knows what, blowing into neighborhoods, and we're breathing it in. And so if we're going to be good stewards, we have to maintain the buildings we have. But there's no funding. If there's not students in the building, there's no funding to take care of these buildings that we're not actively using. So what we're hoping to do, and part of what's come out of this process, is we're sitting on some land that would be great for housing. There's housing all around it. There's a park there. We'd never be able to get a bus to it because of how the roadway is. So we're just sitting on it. And if we could sell that we could be hopefully contributing to more housing availability in Missoula, but also we could take that money and put it into an endowment, which would be, so we're taking a public asset and just putting it into a different kind of public asset, but hopefully that would create annual revenue that we could use to take care of the buildings that we want to hold on to.
Great.
Right.
So the one, Prescott is one of the ones that we wouldn't want to just sell to a developer because the neighborhood has so much investment in that space. And that's where we're looking to partner with community members, like possibly a land trust. If we could sell that land into a land trust, and maybe a community partner like Homeward could build affordable housing.
Right.
And then there's a way to actually have that housing be prioritized for teachers.
Workforce housing.
Yes. So, and that's kind of, it's a bit of a pipe dream because of how many layers would have to come together, but it's one that the neighbors are really invested in. And we've said, like, instead of just selling it to a developer for as much money as we can get for it, let's go through this RFP process or request for proposal where we put stipulations on the sale, like, we have to maintain the sledding hill that our community uses. Like, who hasn't had a birthday party at that sledding hill in town? So, you know, being good stewards doesn't always mean getting the highest dollar. It means making sure everybody is getting their needs met. And so I'm really proud of the way this facility study has gone, and I'm looking forward to, right now, the board is just looking at what the committee has suggested as the plan. I think we'll vote to either approve or disapprove that plan in the next month. And then before anything happens to each of those properties, there'll be a chance for public comment and another vote. So there'll be lots of opportunity for people to feel that they can participate and make their voice heard.
Nice.
If they don't like the plan. But there's been a lot of work to make sure if you're affected, you'll be happy. And
Yeah.
it's better stewardship of our resources.
That's
Totally.
amazing. Yeah.
It's actually, I've learned so much.
And y'all did so many building tours last fall, and I'd get all those emails and
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, what is going on?
Gosh. And some of them, like the admin building downtown, it's just got so many historic, beautiful features. And that's one that I do hope it's a perfect spot to turn into some dense housing downtown, right? It's so walkable. But hopefully that it will go to somebody who preserves some of that beautiful architecture. Because you can't pay someone to do that anymore.
Yeah.
That skill is becoming lost. Maybe we can start a program. Yeah, that was probably overly answered, but
It works.
I loved it.
it was such a fascinating process to go through.
I bet.
The Trump administration has intentionally dismantled the Department of Education over the last year and a half. How has this affected Missoula County Public Schools?
Well, last summer, we were really nervous that we weren't going to get our title funding, and that is about 10% of our budget. So we were pretty alarmed because we were counting on it, and then at the last minute, they kind of said, "Oh, you're not going to get it." And then the thing about title, it's 10% of our funding, but the more rural you get in our country, the more those districts and those towns really rely on title funding. It's like 25% of some of our most rural towns' funding. So it was nice to see a very bipartisan outrage, and there was a lawsuit, and that lawsuit was won, and they had to give everyone the title funding that they were promised. So the Department of, I would say federally, that's the number one thing that districts rely on is federal funding. The other aspect of that is there's infrastructure within the Department of Ed for holding districts accountable to making sure students with special needs, that their rights are met. So if I was a parent of a student that I was worried that their rights weren't going to be met, I would be a little bit more concerned about losing those layers of accountability. But the Department of Ed really isn't in charge of much when it comes to education. Education is a states' rights thing. Each state does it differently, and then it's mostly locally funded and locally controlled through school boards. So that's the one thing keeping us safe.
That's why school board elections are important.
No, truly, honestly, and you've seen some communities where it's gone extreme, and those communities are feeling the consequences of those choices.
Okay. Diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives have been under attack from the right and Trump's administration. In this current environment, where that acronym has become a political wedge issue, how are MCPS schools ensuring that these efforts continue without having resources threatened or revoked by our own government?
I think every district had to sign something at the beginning of the year that we were initially a little nervous about. And actually Susie, our Montana superintendent, head of OPI, she tried to kind of cushion us all from it by signing one from the state of Montana that says like we're in compliance. But that didn't work. So then we all had to sign something. It basically said that like we weren't going to do DEI, which, you know, it doesn't matter what you call it. Our diversity is the greatest gift of life, right? Biodiversity is what, talk to any farmer and they'll tell you. It's the secret sauce, right? So our schools are diverse by nature. Inclusivity is a federal mandate, and equity is just makes sense. So no matter how you rewrite it without those words, like schools are a place where you want to get the best out of kids, and you want to create an environment where you're getting the best out of kids. And if you teenagers are already nervous about being different from each other. Right. So the work of education is to draw out each kid's individual gifts and natural talents and help them find a sure footing in those. So it's, whatever we have to call it to get our funding, we'll call it. But the good work is going to happen no matter what. So I think, Missoula as a community is committed to that. And when they said we couldn't have pride flags around, well, we weren't going to stand for that.
This community showed up for that,
in a big way. You saw school board members at that city council trying to make that happen. So, and now all of Montana can rest easy. Until the next session, we all might have to get involved again, so get ready.
Right. Pay attention.
Yeah.
Did we ask the I don't have kids one yet?
Oh, yes, do it.
Not yet.
That's such a good one.
Cool.
It hasn't been asked,
All right. So I don't have kids. Andy doesn't have kids yet. And I don't have much of a connection with the public schools for that reason. What are some things that I can do to support our public schools here in Missoula County?
Ooh, well, I'm going to go back and just help you understand your connection to our schools, because this is something when we're trying to pass the levies, we often hear from our senior citizens community is that, I don't want to have to keep paying for these schools. I don't have kids in them anymore. Like, why is it important to me? And I will let everyone know, if you have any use of our healthcare system, you are benefiting from our public school system, because what we don't have in Montana is a med school. We finally got some nursing schools, but we don't have a med school. Every physician that is working in our state, we have to recruit. And the number one question we get from every recruit is, how are your schools? And they're talking about our public schools. Most of the people that we're trying to attract to our state or to come home to our state are people who are raising a family, and a good, strong school system is where they want to raise their family and work and live. So it used to be easy to recruit people because Missoula is so cool. We only used to ever lose people to Bozeman. But now we lose people, and it's gotten really hard to recruit because our cost of living is so high. So when we're entertaining them here and trying to show that Missoula off, if they can make more money, have a cheaper house, and a better school system in Bend, Oregon, in Bellingham, Washington, in Tahoe, in Reno, where they're making a lot more money because Medicaid rates are different in each state, and Montana's are very low. That's another issue. They're going to go there. And healthcare is our number one industry, and what we're seeing now is an erosion. As it's harder to attract specialists, we see things like we just lost our pediatric ICU at Community. So if your kid is really sick, you now have to go out of state to Spokane, you have to go to Seattle, and those folks might not be in network in your insurance. So our healthcare industry is just so tied into our public education system. So I always tell our senior citizens, if you need healthcare, which often they do, you also are going to need a strong school system to support that healthcare system. So that's why it's important, even if you're not using it directly. The other reason it's important, even if you're not using it directly, is MCPS is the third largest employer in Missoula.
Wow.
So if we have to make job cuts, that's less people able to eat in our restaurants, less people able to hire trades to work on their houses, and less people to shop in our local businesses. So you see, part of what makes Missoula great is how vibrant our community is and how interesting and unique our shops and businesses are. And we need people to have local paychecks. Tourism isn't here in February,
right,
except for the Big Sky.
We wish it was.
Dock Fest, yeah. But so that's why. And how can you get involved? We see a ton of our senior citizens involved in our elementary schools, especially. There's lots of reading programs where we have like a retired cardiologist that I just saw at Lowell the other day reading with our students who need extra support. So some kids just need that one-on-one eyeball time, and there's if you go to our MCPS website, there's a way you can see all the volunteer needs, like a first grade class that needs a field trip chaperone, or reading opportunities, or a playground monitor, or a great, one of our crossing guards was like, I need to get out of the house every day. I need to move around. I need to talk to people to stay sane. And crossing guard was such a perfect fit for her.
That's the job I want.
It's honestly, there's actually a girl from Vermont that does it in Burlington, and she Instagrams like her daily happenings.
I've seen that.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Yes.
It does look fun.
Yeah. So there's lots of volunteer opportunities, but it's really great, especially for our seniors, to give them anchors in their week, reasons to leave the house and get dressed, all the up and down off the floor keeps them mobile. And we know that multi-generational ties are one of the keys to long life. So, if you want to live longer, come volunteer in our schools.
Yeah, I love that. Some of the, fondest memories going way back into my elementary childhood are when the older folks would come read to us. They'd take us out from the classroom, either to the library or the hall, and they'd read to us once or twice a week. And that was one of my favorite parts of the week.
You feel special, and you get to connect. And actually, there's a study, I wish I could name it off the top of my head, but it shows the more positive connections children have to adults in their community, the more risks they're willing to take as an adult. because they have that sense of a safety net. So the more grown-ups that they can have connections with that are really positive and safe, the more, the farther they will tend to go in life because they're willing to take more risks because they feel like their safety net is strong.
Cool. So if folks want to volunteer in our public schools, they go to, what's the website?
MCPS, I think there's a whole section that says like volunteering, and
Okay.
they will have to get fingerprinted. But
Background check, all that stuff.
yes,
Yep.
it's a one and done thing. They can do it at the admin office. That's a new legislative rule that is unfunded. And that's
Wow.
if you want to push something on the legislature for next session, no more unfunded mandates. If you're going to make a rule, you have to come up with the funding because that is costing us $30,000 a month.
Wow.
And people get mad about you have so many administrators. We have to hire someone, I go to the state. We're only admin heavy because you keep putting all these rules on
Sure,
us that
sure.
cost a lot of money. So hopefully that cost will go down as our volunteers are in the system. But even if you're fingerprinted through DPHHS, another governmental system, those two entities don't talk to each other. So you have to get re-fingerprinted, which to me is a waste of taxpayer dollars.
Right.
So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, Jenny, you've been an amazing first ever guest on the Missoula Dems
Thanks for
Show.
all my little rants.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I learned a lot. Did you learn a lot?
Yeah, definitely.
This was wonderful.
Oh, great.
Thank you for coming to talk to us. And everybody watching, support our public schools.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Fun.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you. How'd we do?